Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Fantasy Griddle podcast. As always, you can find our rankings, fantasy news, and more on fantasygriddle.com. To stay up to date on all of our blogs and podcasts, make sure you like and follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/fantasygriddle, and follow us on Twitter at fantasygriddle. I am your host, Mike Potashnik. With me, as always, ready to serve up some hot takes is my co-host, Duncan Murphy. Duncan, what's on the griddle for tonight?
Tonight on the griddle, we're talking undervalued and overvalued players according to average draft position. We're going to give you a few guys that have been ending up on a lot of our teams this year. And finally, we'll name our one must-have player for the 2018 season.
So the biggest draft weekend of the year has come and gone. If you're still listening to this podcast, it means you made it out alive. Congratulations. It is an exciting time to be a football fan as the real games start up next week. No more of this preseason stuff, but our draft work is not done. I will not rest until each of you have drafted your teams. There are a lot of things happening around the league, and we plan to get you caught up on as much of it as possible. Duncan, can you believe we're only a week away from the regular season?
It's crazy, man. Next Thursday, right? It's the Eagles and the Falcons.
Eagles-Falcons.
Pretty wild. Yeah, so we're pretty close. This is the last weekend that we've got if you're going to be drafting a team. So with that in mind, we're going to give you a few news and notes here just to make sure that everyone's up to date on what's going on around the league. So right off the top, one of the most important developments recently was Devontae Booker was named the starter. I don't know how much that really means that he's the starter. If you've been watching the preseason, it's pretty clear to me that Royce Freeman is the much more talented back here, and he's probably going to be getting a lot of the carries, but Booker has been named the starter, so that's newsworthy. Doug Baldwin is going to be ready for week 1. He's got a knee issue. However, he did come out and say that he likely won't be 100% for the entire season. So a lot of people are backing off on him from that, but Baldwin's a tough guy. He's played through injuries before. Talk about him a little bit more later on, but all signs point to him starting week 1. Adam Gase, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, kind of a strange development. Didn't he all year sort of downplayed the how much Kenyon Drake would be getting the ball, and now with about a week before the season starts, he comes out and says that he expects him to get 15 to 20 touches per game, 15 to 20 carries per game, plus 6 to 8 targets, which would put him in the realm of 28 touches per game. That's going to make him a running back 1. So pretty important development there, and we'll see whether or not he keeps to his word. But if Drake does get the ball that much, he looks like a pretty solid pick for a running back 2 or a running back 1, perhaps. Pitesh, you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting development. I was not 100% sold on Kenyon Drake when we drafted or in any of my other drafts because the workload was just so uncertain with the threat of Frank Gore being there and even Kalen Ballage to a degree. But yeah, that's shocking from Gase. And if you've drafted Kenyon Drake, you obviously feel pretty good about that news. Some other stuff that I thought was interesting, and I saw you pick this guy up in our league, Traquan Smith. If he's available, make sure that you get him because Cameron Meredith has not sealed up a job with the Saints, has not sealed up a starting role with the Saints. He could be a major contributor for you right away if Traquan Smith is on your waiver wire. A couple other trades that took place today. Teddy Bridgewater traded from the Jets to the Saints for a third-round pick, and Brett Hundley traded by the Green Bay Packers to the Seahawks for a 2019 sixth-round pick. So nothing earth-shattering there with fantasy stuff. Those guys are both going to be backups at their new teams. So I think we're ready to get right into players that we found to be overvalued and undervalued based on their ADP.
All right, sounds good. One other thing I wanted to note here is that your boy, George Kittle, returned to practice, which is good news for my fantasy squad.
Yeah, Kittle is back. It looks like he'll be ready to go for week 1, so whatever issue he was having appears to be no longer an issue, and he'll be ready to go and ready to score some touchdowns with Jimmy G.
Excellent. Let's get into the undervalued, overvalued, shall we?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
All right, I'm going to start with my overvalued quarterback, and I have Deshaun Watson. He's the number 2 ranked quarterback going 37th overall, and there's just no chance that I'm taking Deshaun Watson over the likes of Brady, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees. There is definitely upside there, but the first pick in the 4th round, I'm still going running back and wide receiver. Alex Collins is there, Derrick Henry, Juju Smith-Schuster, Larry Fitzgerald. There's just too much value there with the possibility to come back later at the quarterback position. I'm fine with you reaching for a quarterback, Rodgers or Brady or even Watson, just not this high, not in, with the 37th pick for a guy that has only done it for half a season.
Well, you know where I stand on Deshaun. It's my number one QB at the moment. It stinks that you got to take him this soon. That's the thing. And I don't think he's not on any of my teams this year for that reason, is I just don't draft quarterbacks that early. But I do think at the end of the year, he has a fairly good shot of ending as a top 3 quarterback. Like I said, I have him ranked as 1. But there's a lot of good running backs and receivers you're giving up to take him there. My first overvalued player is actually another quarterback, Carson Wentz. Perhaps an unpopular opinion, he's going number 70th overall right now, which puts him as the number 7 quarterback. And that's about round 6. Still not cleared for contact. With the season opening a little bit less than a week out, it's kind of troubling in my opinion. He's 9 months out from ACL and LCL surgery. The recovery time frame there for an ACL is 9 to 12 months. His rehab was delayed with the LCL tear, which kept him on crutches a little bit longer. So I'm thinking that Wentz is going to miss potentially the first 4 weeks of the season. They've been pushing him and they're trying to get him ready for week 1, but all signs point to Nick Foles starting the season. The first 3 weeks they've got, the first week I think he's definitely out. Then they play the Bucs and the Colts 2 and 3. So I think they can ride Foles there. So I'm looking at Wentz coming into play starting week 4 versus Tennessee. And then he's got the Titans, the Vikings, and the Jags the next 4 weeks before the bye week. That's meaning that you might only get 2 good weeks out of him before week 10. And this guy's going in round 6. I think people are drafting him based on him being the MVP player he was last year. However, this is a serious injury, especially because it's not just the ACL, it's the LCL. And the LCL, it's known to sap explosiveness. That's the injury that basically ended Victor Cruz's career. So I'm totally backing away from Carson Wentz this year unless he falls significantly in drafts.
Yeah, they're the opening game this season on a Thursday night, and it looks like Nick Foles, he hasn't been named the starter yet. Doug Peterson said he's going to make that decision privately, but all indications are that Nick Foles is going to be the starting quarterback of the Eagles to start the year and for at least the first few weeks. So wait on Carson Wentz. Do not, he's going 70th overall. You don't need to take him there. There's other quarterbacks available that are going to play, all 16 games that you can go get. One of those players is my undervalued player, Matt Stafford. And definitely take him before Wentz. Get the full 16-game schedule out of him. Detroit Lions, their offensive line is better. The run game is better. Obviously, they drafted Kerryon Johnson and added LeGarrette Blount. He has Golden Tate. He has Marvin Jones. And he has second-year player Kenny Golladay, who appears to be very promising, had a decent rookie year and should really step up this year. Matt Stafford, he is a lock for mid 4,000 yards, high 20 touchdowns, and has really taken down the turnovers over the past few years. He's a mature, polished quarterback. And let's not forget, I know we had Calvin Johnson, but this is a quarterback who's put up a 5,000-yard season with 40 touchdowns. That is not common. He's an elite passer in this league, and he also has a soft schedule to start the year. He plays the Jets, the 49ers, the Patriots, Dolphins, Cowboys, Packers. So I think he's going to start very fast, and obviously I'm a huge Stafford fan. He's going 96th overall as the number 9 quarterback, and I'm easily taking him over Wentz and Cousins, and he's my 7th-ranked quarterback.
Yeah, Stafford's offering pretty good value this year, and he's always a pretty dependable quarterback, so can't hate on him there. Let me give you my first undervalued player, and his name is Andrew Luck. He is the 86th player off the board, number 10 quarterback overall, going in round 8 right now, according to Fantasy Pros ADP. So people are just terrified of Luck right now. I mean, they're backing away from him. Nobody wants him. In our draft, I got him in the 13th round. It was ridiculous. I don't understand. Like, I get it that people are nervous, and he's had some pretty shitty passes in the preseason. He doesn't look great, but he's got to be shaking off some rust. He hasn't played football in over a year. Looking back to his last 4 healthy seasons, this is where he finished. Number 4, number 2, number 4, and number 9. in terms of quarterback ranking. So he's been a top 5 quarterback for 3 of his last 4 healthy seasons. He's got a terrible, terrible defense. They're going to suck. Indy is bad. Because of that, they're going to be in some really negative game scripts. It's going to lead to him having to pass to keep them in the game all season long, which we know is great for fantasy. He could throw the ball 600 plus times. He's already done that twice in his career. It sounds crazy, but if that shoulder holds up, he could throw 600 plus times and be a top 5 quarterback. And this guy's going in round 8 right now, potentially even later than that. So if you do choose to wait a quarterback, I have no problem taking Luck as your number 1 guy and then taking someone like Derek Carr as your backup a few rounds later.
Getting right into running backs, my overvalued and undervalued running backs are directly linked because they're in the same backfield. My overvalued running back is Ronald Jones. He was a second-round pick of the Tampa Bay Bucks, and early on in camp, there was some negative reports about him. The Tampa Bay Times says that Jones' hands need to get a lot softer. I guess he only caught 32 passes in 40 career games at USC, so he wasn't a huge receiver in college, and also he was very inconsistent in blitz pickup on his college tape. Peyton Barber has been named the starter in Tampa Bay, and there's really no competition for carries. Peyton Barber is going 116th overall, the 42nd running back off the board, whereas Ronald Jones is the 28th running back off the board, going much earlier, 70th overall. Peyton Barber is going to lead this running back group in carries. Charles Sims is gone. He's on the IR. And Charles Sims sucks anyway. He literally runs straight up. He looks like he's on stilts when he runs. He's so terrible. I'm so glad that he's cleared more carries for Peyton Barber. Barber has led the Bucs in rushing each week from week 13 on last season. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry during that span. On top of that, Ronald Jones has been just awful in the preseason. He has 18 yards on 18 carries. If you get stuffed at the line every time on 18 carries and just fall forward, you can get 18 yards. And he only has 1 catch all of preseason. Peyton Barber is tearing it up at 5.8 yards per carry in the preseason. He's getting the carries. He's getting the goal line touches. And if you're getting him in round 10, that's a great value long after Ronald Jones has come off the board.
Yeah, I love Barber this year. And hopefully you'll consider my offer, Chris Carson for Peyton Barber, who actually took 3 picks ahead of Barber. Where do you stand on that?
I don't know. I've been big on Rashad Penny. Obviously, the hand injury has derailed his preseason and obviously bumped him to the second string in Seattle. So I just think Peyton Barber is going to be the lead ball carrier for this team, if not for the full season, the majority of it. And I don't know where Chris Carson and Rashad Penny are going to stand even come week 2.
All right, well, we'll consider this negotiation ongoing. But getting into Barber, I do like Barber. I've been watching him in preseason, and he's surprisingly spry for a big guy. I mean, he runs behind his blockers well. He's pretty fast. I don't know how I haven't noticed him before, really. He's looks like a solid running back, so great value there. So let me give you my guy I'll give you my overvalued first, and that's Jerick McKinnon, a player that I really want to like. I like Jerick McKinnon, but I hate his average draft position. He's going number 26th overall, puts him as the 15th ranked back off the board, going in the beginning of round 3. And for me, it's just too rich for my blood. He's got a calf/knee injury right now. Inside Injuries is saying that it's a grade 2 calf injury with an optimal recovery time of 4 weeks, putting him ready right at the beginning of the season. But if you've been playing fantasy baseball at all, you might have heard that Josh Donaldson, who I had to make a trade with you, P-Tash, has been nursing a sore calf for the entire season. So calf injuries can be lingering. For a running back, it's not good. Inside Injuries is putting him as a high injury risk. That's actually pretty rare to see of any player. So he's one of the higher injury risks in the league right now, according to Inside Injuries, which if you haven't checked it out, definitely check Inside Injuries out. They've got a lot of cool algorithms about projecting the chances of a player to get injured. They're pretty accurate. The 49ers also signed Alfred Morris. He's done really well in Shanahan's offense before when he was in Washington. Been watching the preseason. Morris looks pretty fast. He actually looks really good. He's been reading blocks well. He's a tough player. I think he's going to handle a bunch of carries this year. And I know they paid McKinnon a lot of money, and I could see him getting a lot of receptions, but I don't think he has it in him to be a workhorse back. So a player like this that you're going to have to draft in the third round, for me, that's an overvalued player. So I'm not going to be drafting McKinnon really in any of my leagues. Where do you stand on that, Pitash?
Yeah, I don't love McKinnon where he's being drafted either. I think obviously the 49ers like him to bring him in and everything, but he never really ran away with the Vikings job last year. Latavius Murray was still super involved in that offense and even, outproduced McKinnon in several games. And with McKinnon being injured in the preseason and Matt Breida being a good player and Alfred Morris being signed, I really think he could lose some carries here, especially early in the season. Alfred Morris is playing well and appears to really have carved out a role on this team.
For my undervalued player, I'm going to head to Washington and name Chris Thompson, who's the 91st player selected off the board right now, the 38th ranked running back coming off the board, and that puts him in about round 8. Last year, Thompson was the number 27th ranked running back in half PPR leagues. He was the number 11 running back through the first 6 weeks of the season last year. So he was one of those guys you may have forgotten about because he sort of fell off and then he had an injury. But for the first 6 weeks last year, he was a number 1 running back. He had a couple games of more than 20 points, multiple games of over 12 points, did have a dip for about 4 games. Then he broke his leg and he was out for the rest of the year. He's recovered now, but last year was on pace for 62 receptions. Still got a role in this offense. With Geis going down, that's going to really give him an opportunity. He signed Peterson, but Peterson's old. Should have retired years ago, but he can't stay home because he hates his kids.
Yeah, he hits his kids harder than he hits the hole.
Hopefully I don't ever run into Peterson in a dark alley because he'll kick my ass. Okay. The other reason that I like Chris Thompson is he's playing with Alex Smith. And Smith loves throwing to running backs. Last year, he threw 166 targets to running backs. That was the second most in the NFL. He also plays Indy week 2. I've made it clearly stated many times that Indy is going to be absolutely horrible on defense this year. So, if anything, you could have Thompson as a flex player for the second week of the season, and then kind of just see where it goes.
Thompson was amazing last year in the beginning of the year. I was so jealous of everyone that picked him up because I don't believe in him as like being a huge fantasy asset. The touchdowns that he was scoring and the production he was putting up were just totally unexpected. But yeah, I could see him having another huge role this season if he could stay healthy. And I know he's kind of a smaller player. Then the sky's the limit for him. I don't think Adrian Peterson is going to play all 16 games or even close to that. And Chris Thompson is by far their most effective running back, not so much rushing the ball, but catching balls out of the backfield.
The other thing with Thompson is I told you his ADP puts him in round 8, but he's sliding. The draft that we just went in, I picked him in the 11th round. So a lot of people are completely forgetting about Chris Thompson.
Yeah, and since they've signed Adrian Peterson, I think there is a correlation between Thompson sliding and Adrian Peterson being drafted at all and kind of moving up into the 11th, 10th round at this point. A lot of people are taking a flyer on Adrian Peterson a week or two ago. That wasn't a possibility. It looked like it was going to be all Thompson. But that'll get me into my next player that is overvalued, and that is Demaryius Thomas of the Broncos. He just posted his worst season since 2011 in pretty much every category. He had only 83 catches for 949 yards and 5 touchdowns. So it's a solid season, but not what we've become accustomed to from Demaryius Thomas. He's getting a little bit older. He's turning 31. He's been very uninvolved this preseason with the new quarterback, Case Keenum. He has just 3 catches for 18 yards, while he's being outperformed by Emmanuel Sanders and Cortland Sutton. Royce Freeman is a definite upgrade in this run game and will take some focus off the pass game, and I don't think they're going to lean on Keenum as much as they did the quarterbacks last season. Keenum had a great year in Minnesota, but the receivers and the run game were probably better there in Minnesota than they're going to be in Denver. And let's not forget how bad Keenum was with the Rams the year before. The whole offense was just brutal. Even Todd Gurley was a disaster. Why are we going to take Demaryius Thomas 46th overall with good receivers still on the board? Golden Tate, Corey Davis, Jarvis Landry, and you can even get his teammate, Emmanuel Sanders, who's my undervalued player, almost 3 rounds later at the 78 spot.
Good pick there. I, too, would think that Thomas is a little bit overvalued this year, going at in kind of the middle rounds. If you guys haven't checked out Cortland Sutton, you got to see this guy. He's an absolute freak. They've been calling him Megatron Jr. in training camp, and he's made a few highlight reel catches. Apparently, I read this thing that said that Emmanuel Sanders was talking about how he's been basically making highlight reel catches every practice, and that it's normal. They expect him to make those kind of crazy catches. So I think they drafted Sutton to replace Thomas. He very well could be carving out more of a role in the office and be taking away from Demaryius this year.
Yeah, and who did you have for your overvalued wide receiver?
My overvalued wide receiver is Josh Gordon, the famous Josh Gordon. He's going at 42 overall, the number 18 wide receiver, going in the middle of round 4. Gordon, I think, the last time Gordon played a full season was 2013. That was 5 seasons ago. Granted, he put up 1,600 yards that year, but that was 5 seasons ago. It's crazy that he's been out for this long, that stupid Roger Goodell has been suspending him for smoking a joint every once in a while. But, I get it. He was dominant, but it was 1 season. He's been out of the game for so long. You're taking a player that has considerable risk. He's obviously going to be rusty. You're giving up players at that range that are going to be much safer. They're much more dependable. Like I'd much prefer Allen Robinson, Marvin Jones, Chris Hogan for wide receivers in that range. Or you could go running back and take Mark Ingram, Carlos Hyde, Deion Lewis, Sony Michel. All those guys I put ahead of Josh Gordon. He's missed almost all of training camp. Obviously, he's feeling the pressure. He had to take a step back from the game and kind of focus on himself. And I think a big part of that was him feeling the pressure of getting back on the field and whether or not he can live up to these expectations. He's going to face number 1 defensive backs every game now. He's not going to sneak up on anybody. I think reports are also saying that he hasn't learned the playbook. He's behind. So I just don't see it this year. I think maybe Gordon gives you a productive second half of the year, but I don't see how he's not rusty after 5 seasons away from the game.
Yeah, I totally agree. Gordon does seem to be overvalued, going 42nd overall, but I definitely would want him on my team. He's just such a freak athlete. If you've watched him on Hard Knocks, he's absolutely huge. He appears to be in shape. And yeah, I think he may have a better connection with Baker Mayfield if Baker Mayfield becomes the quarterback in Cleveland. Tyrod Taylor's never really supported much success from the wide receiver position in Buffalo. So I think Baker Mayfield may be able to bring out more from Josh Gordon. And if they make the switch at quarterback, I would definitely try to get my hands on Josh Gordon.
Yeah, I'm totally rooting for Gordon. I think he's a great player. He's an interesting player. He's entertaining and definitely rooting for him. But round 4, I'll pass. For my undervalued wide receiver, let's head to Carolina and talk about DJ Moore. Rookie wide receiver going 115th overall, the number 49 wide receiver coming off the board in round 10. This guy is explosive. He was the Big Ten receiver of the year last year at Maryland, caught a school record 80 passes for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns in 12 games last year. There's a metric out there. I think I talked about it last time. It's called Adjusted Explosive Index. Basically, it projects a prospect's explosiveness. The formula is pretty simple. They take a player's height, weight, vertical jump, broad jump, and they divide it by the 40-yard dash. So real simple, right? But it comes out to this number that is supposed to tell you how explosive these players are. Well, DJ Moore posted a rookie class best of 102.6 adjusted explosive index. That put him as the best combine measured mark in the past 2 years. So extremely explosive player. Ran a 4.42 40. He has a 39.5-inch vertical leap. NFL comparisons are Stephon Diggs, Steve Smith, Golden Tate. He's a little bit bigger than Diggs, 15 pounds heavier. He's 6 foot 210. That puts him 2 inches taller than Tate and 10 pounds heavier. So he's a pretty solid guy, is an explosive player. I see him ending up as a pretty solid wide receiver 3. And this is a guy you can get in round 10. If it's not a competitive league, you could even get him, toward the end of the draft, around 14 even. I've been watching him in the preseason, and he just jumps off the tape. He's one of those guys that he passes the eye test. I think if he does get the targets, which I think he will this year because Funchess really isn't that great of a receiver, I think Olsen's on the downside of his career. He's also coming off that foot injury. DJ Moore, I'm looking to add to my team late in drafts as a upside wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I've just always avoided rookie wide receivers. I feel like it's a tough position to come into the league and produce right away. So I'm going to have to see DJ Moore do it first before I add him on any of my teams. I know I've missed out in the past on like the Odell Beckhams and Juju Smith-Schusters and Michael Thomases, but I just, for whatever reason, I'm just biased against rookie wide receivers. I really want to see them do it first.
Round 10, come on. When would you take him?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't take him at all?
DJ Moore?
Well, I mean, what round? You would just not draft him ever?
I wouldn't draft him. I haven't drafted him yet, and I
That's crazy. So he's off your board. Off your board because he's a rookie?
Yeah, I mean,
That's insane.
Yeah, I would not draft DJ Moore.
Rookies have had some success. There was a few years ago where there was a bunch of rookies that played well. Last couple of years, they have definitely come out.
It's Cam Newton. I don't think Cam Newton is going to... Funchess is their number one. I don't think he's going to surpass Funchess. He does suck. But I also think Cam Newton is not the strongest passer in the league, and I don't see him, keeping Funchess as a 1, Olsen involved, McCaffrey out of the backfield, and DJ Moore. I just don't see all of this.
That's a valid point. Might not have the targets there. I do like the player, though.
Yeah, certainly.
Certainly.
Okay, that's going to get us into that's going to get us into tight ends, and my overvalued tight end is pretty much everybody's second-rated tight end, Travis Kelce, going 31st overall. I do like Travis Kelce, but the tight end position I feel like is a relatively deep position. Every team in your league should have at least one pretty good tight end, and you can get Zach Ertz sometimes a full round or two later. We actually saw him go in round 6 of one of our drafts over the weekend, which was criminal. That you should never, last till round 6. That was crazy. I couldn't believe that. But how can you take this guy over Adam Thielen, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, difference-making wide receiver 2s? You could take one of them and then take your tight end when everyone else is digging through the scraps at running back and wide receiver. Gronk is the only league-winning tight end, the only one that you need to take, crazy early, in the second round. If you don't get Gronk, wait for Zach Ertz. And if you don't get Zach Ertz, just wait until the end of the draft and take who's ever left.
Wow, that was a hot take there. Not on board for Kelce. Crazy.
He's definitely talented, but I don't see him being as big a difference maker as Gronk. I don't think anyone would say that he is. And if you can get a Thielen and an Evan Ingram or a Stephon Diggs and then come back with, George Kittle or Jack Doyle or something like that, I would much rather get that combination than to get Travis Kelce and be stuck with, a back-end wide receiver.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's one of those guys, too, that I really like the player, but I just don't like the ADP, and I'm never going to have him on any of my teams because he's just going way too soon. So my overvalued player at tight end is Greg Olsen. He's going 62nd overall, the number 5 tight end coming off the board in round 6. Previous to last year, he was a bit of an Iron Man. He had played 9 straight 16-game seasons, but last year he suffered a Jones fracture in his right foot, caused him to miss 8 games. Came back, wasn't the same player. Inside Injuries is reporting that this type of injury takes over a year to fully recover, and he's going to be 357 days removed from his surgery. He's at age 33. This could very well be the beginning of the decline for Olsen. He's been great over the years. He's averaged 125 targets and 80 receptions in the 3 years prior to last year, but considering his ADP is going in round 6, I'm not on board with drafting him this year, and I'd much rather invest in either a Russell Wilson or a top running back or receiver, or one of those guys in the middle rounds, and then wait and take somebody like you were mentioning, Doyle or Kittle or David Njoku, somebody like that later on.
Yeah, for sure. Olsen's like a used car at this point. The tires are starting to go flat, and I don't want to be there when the thing totally craps out. So I do not want Greg Olsen anywhere near my team unless it's a great value. So I totally agree with you there. My undervalued player is actually probably the only tight end that's older than him. Ben Watson. He's the 25th overall tight end, going 214th overall, which in most cases will be undrafted. And I'm just in awe of what they're saying about him in New Orleans, for his return back to the Saints. Joel Erickson of the New Orleans Advocate said that Watson looks like he's still in the prime of his career. He's making eye-popping contested catches a normal occurrence in practice. And Mark Ingram said that Ben Watson looks like an Under Armour mannequin. So that's crazy. Ben Watson is 37 years old. To have one of his teammates say that he looks like an Under Armour mannequin is, a huge testament to his work ethic and how well he's performing at his age. And obviously, somebody like that you'd want on your team. I have Jack Doyle on several teams, and when he has his bye early in the season, I'm definitely going to try to secure Ben Watson and try to trade him for something later on in the season.
Ben Watson. Big Ben Watson. How old do you think he is?
He's 37. He was
all right, so you know.
Like
he was born in 1980.
Yeah,
born
he's
1980.
Yeah, he's.
I'll be shocked. I will eat my words if he is unbelievable this year, but I have to say, looking back on his last season and with the Saints, he had close to 1,000 yards, like 115 targets, something crazy like that. I could see it happening. I'll be shocked if it does, but if it does happen, I'm going to totally give you credit.
Yeah, I mean, he had a resurgence with them 2 years ago, and obviously his season last year was ruined by 2 years ago was ruined by a torn Achilles, and then last year wasn't nearly as productive with the Ravens. But obviously, the Saints offense is an elite offense. They're going to put points on the board, and I think Breeze lacks, a veteran presence in that receiving core, and Watson can fill in and be an immediate, red zone threat.
Do you remember that play when do you know what I'm going to say? What play I'm going to say right now?
The home opener against the Bills.
What did he do?
He caught like a spitting touchdown back in the end zone week 1 when Brady came back from his torn ACL.
This is more of a gritty play, a Belichick play that he didn't catch the ball. Put it that way.
Champ Bailey.
Champ Bailey. That fucking play, dude. He ran like 100 yards and absolutely demolished Champ Bailey on the 1 yard line to prevent a pick six. It was pretty amazing, and I'll forever love Ben Watson just for that play. If you haven't watched it, look it up. Look up Ben Watson crushes Champ Bailey on YouTube.
Yeah, the effort and hustle on that was incredible because everyone in the stadium thought Champ Bailey had a pick six, and I think it was an interception. But for Watson to catch up to him and force him out, I think there was even thought that it may have been a touchback. But that was a ridiculous play. I actually forgot all about that until you just mentioned it.
That's right. The ball came out. I forgot. I think they did rule it down at the 1, but it was almost a touchback.
Yeah, that was an incredible play.
All right, I think I have one more guy for you here. My undervalued tight end, and I'm going to go to San Francisco and name your boy, Pitash, George Kittle. He is 124th overall, going as the 12th tight end coming off the board in round 11. He had the 5th most red zone targets of all tight ends last year as a rookie. He has clicked really well with Jimmy Garoppolo. The end of last year in Jimmy Garoppolo's 5 starts, Kittle averaged 3 catches for 44.8 yards and scored a touchdown. Not earth-shattering numbers, but that would have put him on pace for about 717 yards and about 4 scores. I think he takes a step forward this year. Obviously, they know they have something here with Kittle, and it doesn't hurt having Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback and being in a Kyle Shanahan offense. Did have a shoulder injury recently. He just recently returned to practice, but all indications are that it really wasn't that serious. That's also pushing him down boards at the moment. So this is a tight end that you could get. I think he's going to be a tight end 1. You can draft him in round 11. By drafting a guy like this, it just gives you so much more freedom to take other players early that could hit and make you win your league. So personally, I'd much rather take a bunch of lottery ticket, high upside running backs and receivers in rounds like 6 through 10, and then come back and take someone like Kittle in the 11th.
Absolutely, yeah. Kittle has been a target of mine in drafts as well as Jack Doyle, and there's kind of a group of 3 or 4 guys that are going to be there late in drafts. Some of these guys are going to fall, and people aren't going to take, a second or third tight end. They're going to be there for a while. Once the first 10 or 11 go off the board, you can wait and just cherry pick the guy that you want in one of those late rounds.
Yeah, for sure. The other guy we really haven't talked about at all at tight end that I think is undervalued right now is Austin Hooper. Guy had a lot of hype a couple years ago. He sort of didn't put up the year that was expected last year, but didn't put up terrible numbers. He's pretty efficient, and word on the street is that he spent the offseason working closely with Matt Ryan. He's been doing pretty well in the preseason. I think Austin Hooper is another guy you could look at late in drafts.
Matt Ryan is just the worst quarterback in the league. He's gonna
your arch nemesis.
Yeah,
Nemesi?
That'd be more than one, right?
That's right.
Yeah, anyone connecting to Matt Ryan, I'm not a huge fan of.
What about Julio?
Oh yeah, I like Julio. Take him at the end of round 1. That's fine.
But he's connected to Matt Ryan though.
He rises above that. And plays well.
I feel like you would never take Julio. If you were at the end of the first round and Julio was there, you would not take him.
It would really depend on the situation.
Julio or Michael Thomas?
Julio.
You sure about that?
Yeah. No, Julio's.
You don't sound sure.
Superior athlete. No, I'm absolutely sure about that one, but
I'm not.
If he were with Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or Brady, I mean, he'd be 1,000 times better.
Julio or AJ Green?
Julio.
Okay. All right.
Julio's my wide receiver 4 after Odell and.
I just feel like if you were actually on the clock, you would say to yourself, "I don't like Matt Ryan, so I'm not going to take Julio."
No, I mean, I would not take him. I would prefer maybe a running back. I would.
Anyone else but someone tied to Matt Ryan?
Yeah. No, I mean, Matt Ryan sucks. He's awful. He's never going to get back to MVP form. He's terrible. Guys that we keep finding on our rosters, across the board, I am noticing that I'm getting the same 3 guys on all of my teams, and it's not so much that I'm seeking them out, but they're just kind of always there, and I feel like the value's too good to pass up. The first guy that I have is T.Y. Hilton, and if you look at his numbers, he's put up elite numbers with Andrew Luck when he's healthy. In the last 2 years with a healthy Andrew Luck, he's averaged 87 catches on 143 targets and just shy of 1,400 yards in each of those years. Andrew Luck is healthy, we think, and T.Y. Hilton is by far his best wide receiver. I don't love T.Y. Hilton as a player. I'm not, he's a smaller guy. The touchdown upside is not there. But when he's falling to me in the middle or the end of round 3, it's like impossible to pass up. And that's where I've been taking him is round 3. I definitely wouldn't take him, at the back end of round 2 or anything. But in round 3, a healthy T.Y. Hilton with a healthy Andrew Luck, it just makes too much sense to pass up on that. Yeah, the other 2 guys that I always have on my team that have kind of fallen right in my lap is Peyton Barber. I got him in the 10th round in several leagues. And Jack Doyle, obviously, I've said that I'm waiting on tight end, and Jack Doyle seems to be the one guy that is like slipping through the cracks in every draft, which is surprising because he didn't have Andrew Luck last season, and he finished as the 8th best tight end. So that was very surprising. If you look at the Colts' numbers when Andrew Luck is healthy, they've put up elite production out of the tight end spot. And with Andrew Luck coming back, I don't see how Jack Doyle's not a top option.
How about the irony of me ending up with Kittle and you ending up with Doyle this year, huh?
That was wild. Yeah.
I knew you were going to do that, you bastard.
I Googled George Kittle, and I saw the shoulder injury, and I was like, I don't want to even mess around with that. If Doyle's there, I'm taking Doyle. And honestly, I read your article that you wrote on Doyle, and I was like, if somebody else is that high on him, maybe I should be too.
Great. I dug my own grave on that one. All right, let me give you my guys here. So, my boys, these are the guys who have been ending up on all my teams this year. Number 1, Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen is going to be a beast this year. I'm putting him as a possible league-winning player, taking him in about round 7. Very high in Cohen this year. I think he's a strong weekly flex play, and someone that I'm targeting in all drafts. The other guys that I mentioned Mark Ingram and Doug Baldwin. Ingram, he's got the suspension, but this guy, he was the number 6th overall back last year in half PPR. If you can survive for 4 weeks, you're going to get a running back 1 in the 5th round. To me, that's unbelievable value. I think it gives you the opportunity to take wide receivers early and really load up and build a team that is just going to be a force when he comes back. So Ingram is going to be one of my most targeted players. He's been on all my teams. Doug Baldwin, we mentioned earlier, he had the knee injury. Some people are a little bit afraid of that. He's also one of those guys just perennially undervalued. But if you look back on him, he's been a top 13 receiver for the last 3 seasons. So the guy can ball. He's a player. He has this knee injury, but he's a tough guy. He hasn't really missed a lot of games over the last few years. Came out and said he's probably not going to be 100% all year, but I think if he plays week 1, as long as he takes care of his body, which I know he will, you can get him in the 3rd round. He's sliding with this new news about the knee, so you could potentially get him in the 4th round. He's a number 1 receiver. Definitely add Baldwin to your teams if you see him in the 3rd.
All right. That will bring us to tough guys to figure out this season. I have 2 guys in mind, and one of them especially that comes to mind is Kerryon Johnson of the Detroit Lions. Who knows what is going to go on in this backfield? He's barely played at all with the first-string offense. He's getting outworked by Blunt in the preseason. He's been outtouched 27-15, which is surprising because they're both new to the team, and you'd think that they'd want to see what they have in Kerryon Johnson as a rookie. Blunt's kind of an established player at this point. You know what you're going to get. But with Johnson, he hasn't really been used in a starting role yet, and Theo Riddick is going to be heavily involved in that passing game. I cannot invest a top pick in Kerryon Johnson with all the uncertainty there, but I can definitely invest a late-round pick in LeGarrette Blunt.
Yeah, Kerryon is definitely a confusing player. I have the feeling that for the people that take a chance on Kerryon, they could be greatly rewarded because he's extremely athletic and they have a pretty good line there. I'm not sure if Blunt's going to be able to really carry the load like he has in the past. Tough guy to figure out, and he doesn't really have the ADP that warrants taking a risk on a player like that. I think he's going in like the 6th or 7th round right now. Personally, I think it'd be tough for me to take him there. If he's in the 8th round, I would probably make a move for Johnson.
Yeah, the other guy that's in kind of a weird backfield situation, I know you mentioned this at the beginning, was Royce Freeman. I don't know why Booker has been named the starting running back. He's not explosive. He only had 3.8 yards per carry last year and only scored 1 touchdown despite being very involved in their passing game. Freeman has been awesome in the preseason, 84 yards on 15 carries, 3 touchdowns. But it's just going to be an annoying situation because even when Freeman does inevitably take over the lead back duties in Denver, Booker is still going to be involved in that passing game. So I've been very impressed with Royce Freeman in the preseason, but at his ADP, which has been creeping up each week, I don't know that I want to take him just because Devontae Booker is going to be there all year.
Yeah, that ADP has really been creeping up. Right now he's going in the 4th round. So for a guy who's technically not the starter right now, you really got to be willing to roll the dice. Tough to take the risk there in the 4th round. All right, so a couple of guys that are tough for me this year to figure out are Dalvin Cook and Tyreek Hill. Dalvin Cook, when he was in the field last year, was a revelation for the Vikings. He was on pace for, I'm not sure how many touches, but he was on pace for a huge workload. He was extremely efficient. He looked great on the field. Tears his ACL, and now it's just tough to know what you're going to have coming back. I don't doubt his talent. What I do doubt is the workload and the fact that Latavius Murray is there. He actually looks really good in the preseason. I've always been a Latavius Murray fan. I think he's a pretty good back. He's a tough guy, dependable runner. Definitely he's going to snatch some goal line carries. Dalvin Cook's going at the end of the 1st round, beginning of the 2nd round right now. So there's a lot of risk baked into that.
All right. So now we're going to talk about our one guy that we must have this year. For me, it's Jamal Williams, running back, Green Bay Packers. Head coach Mike McCarthy has already come out and said that he expects a big year for Williams. His main competition, Aaron Jones, is suspended for the first 2 weeks, so Williams gets a chance to come out of the gate fast with an offense led by Aaron Rodgers. If he plays well, he's going to keep the job. He has an average draft position of 80, which is round 7, so he's a good value there as either an RB2 or a flex. And you compare him with Aaron Jones, who has an ADP of 97, so he's going a couple rounds later in round 9. And between the two of them, you're guaranteed the RB1 for the Green Bay Packers offense, which is an elite position in fantasy football. Even if you don't get Aaron Jones, you can still feel pretty good about Williams. Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery are both injury-prone, and with Aaron Jones serving that suspension, I think Jamal Williams is going to run away with this job, literally and figuratively.
Interesting. You're real high on him. I can't believe it. I don't know. I'm not a believer.
He impressed me last year. I got him off the waiver wire in a couple leagues, and I really felt like he played well down the stretch, even though Brett Hundley was the quarterback and not Aaron Rodgers. He stayed healthy, which was a big thing because other guys in that offense could not do it. And I feel like they're really going to get away from Montgomery in the backfield. I think he's shown that he can't handle the punishment of being an every down running back any longer. I think they're going to have him in more of a hybrid role. And I think Aaron Jones may actually be more talented than Williams, but Aaron Jones just can't seem to get and stay healthy. He couldn't do it last year. He can't do it in the preseason this year. So I would feel very comfortable with Aaron Jones as a handcuff. But yeah, I love Jamal Williams, and I've often sought after whoever the starting running back is for the Packers, because when they're linked to Aaron Rodgers and they're in the red zone as much as the Packers are, they're going to score touchdowns and they're going to put up fantasy points.
All right, well, my one must-have player for 2018 is Mark Ingram. And the reason that I think that he's my must-have guy is just the strategy that I've decided to go with this year is to take a top running back in the first round, but then come back and spend your second, third, and fourth taking some stud receivers. If you do that and then take Mark Ingram in the fifth, which is what you can do right now, you're guaranteeing yourself 2 running back ones as of week 5. So in order for that to work, you just need someone to take Mark Ingram's place for 4 weeks. We've already talked about a number of guys who could fill that role for you. Peyton Barber is one, Chris Carson, Chris Thompson. Who else is going late that could fill in for you, P-Tash?
Adrian Peterson, and even Jonathan Williams out of that same Saints backfield. They've said that he's going to fill the Mark Ingram role. I wouldn't be totally uncomfortable, in a bind with him. So
Mark Ingram is my must-have player this year. I think he's going to allow you to have a superior team, stack your team with receivers, and end up with 2 running back ones as soon as week 5.
Yeah, Mark the Spark Ingram. I don't know why people are so down on him. They pretend like he sucks, like he's no good. He's averaging 5 yards a carry over the past 2 years, 12 touchdowns last season. Kamara has helped his game. I don't understand why more people aren't getting on the Mark Ingram bandwagon. If you can just figure out those first 4 weeks, Mark Ingram is going to be an elite fantasy asset from week 5 on.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think people. I honestly don't understand why people aren't getting on board with him. I guess you don't want to take a suspended player. I get that, but his ADP is not bad. You can get him probably in the 6th round. I jump up typically and take him in the 5th to produce, ensure that I'm going to have him on my team. But last year he had 230 carries for over 1,100 yards, 12 total touchdowns. Receiving, he had 58 receptions for 416 yards. So he's a dual threat guy. There's not a lot of those out there. Even with Kamara, he's still going to put up points. So totally on board for Mark Ingram this year. If you agree with me, make him a part of your team in the 5th round and stack your team with some beast wide receivers early.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us tonight on the Fantasy Griddle podcast. Remember to check us out on fantasygriddle.com. To stay up to date on all of our blogs and podcasts, make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Fantasy Griddle. Duncan, anything else before we sign off for the night?
If you guys have any questions leading up to your drafts, feel free to hit us up on Twitter at Fantasy Griddle or leave us a comment. Wherever you're listening, make sure that you hit that follow or subscribe button. And if you have time to leave us a good review, that would really help us grow the podcast. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Take care, and we'll see you next week.